You know, even when this place is empty, feels to me like it's full of the faces and stories and lives of people I've known, people I've had the chance to love, people I've had the chance to be loved by in this space. And not just here because it's the worship space, the sanctuary, the nave where we gather to sing and pray and to hear the word. Downstairs in our social hall is marked with the faces of people folding tablecloths or rolling out dough to make apple dumplings or serving pancakes and sausage or washing dishes together as we comfort people after a time of death and offer a meal. I think about meetings that are held here that can feel like drudgery but are important despite the fact that they can be tedious. I think of kids running through the halls and you can hear their feet on the tile floors or thumping through the sanctuary here. And it feels like this place itself is marked by those lives, those memories. We're coming up on a day in the church's life that we mark out as the festival, the Feast of All Saints. And saint is one of those words that sometimes can be used in such convoluted ways we miss the idea that it's the people whose faces have shown us the face of Christ. It's the people who let God put light in their lives that illuminated our lives in turn. It's people who, for all their strength, also had clay feet and weaknesses and failures, who had rough edges as well as beautiful pieces, ways that they showed Christ and at the same time ways that they hurt their neighbors or messed up or struggled. All these things are part of what it is to be a saint, to be somebody who has shown us the face of Christ, which is more to do with Christ and his willingness to work through each one of us to show himself in all sorts of unexpected faces and places and people, and then about our awesomeness. To celebrate the festival of All Saints is a way of saying, look at all the people God puts into our lives who have done something to bring, in some small ways, the reign of God a little more real, a little closer. They stretch throughout time from the ancient followers of Jesus thousands of years ago to the wandering Israelites a millennium before Jesus, to church fathers and mothers of the medieval ages, to reformers, to people who sit in these pews or who work in our church kitchen now. There are people who told you stories and sang beside you. There are people who are still dripping wet with water from the baptismal font. It has everything to do with the way God works through each one of us, showing something of God's own face, of Christ's own presence through each of us. And it's worth it to take a moment and to be thankful for the people we've known and to realize there's this long daisy chain of people going further back, all the way stretching back to the beginning, to Jesus and a handful of people gathered in an upper room, struggling with faith and doubt at the same time, that we're a part of that large family that stretches out to include women and men and old and young people from every nationality and language and color of skin, every background are now part of this amazing communion. And we remain connected to them. All these people through whom God has brought a little more light into our places of shadow. It's a day to be thankful for the people that showed that light, and also for the God who put the light in their lives, that the flame could be passed to the next, and to the next, and to the next, and to you. So, we remember. Maybe you are remembering people in particular, faces you have known, who you have loved, and maybe who have gone to their rest in this last year, people who have died in the last year. Maybe you're remembering people who have lived centuries ago, but whose faith impacted yours. Troublemakers like Martin Luther, or serving troublemakers like Dorothy Day, or martyrs like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, or mystics like Francis of Assisi or Teresa of Avila. This Sunday, we're surrounding our worship space with faces of people who are part of that big family, and obviously Only a handful can fit on our walls. And yet there's this huge, huge collection, this community, this family we belong to. The writer of Hebrews calls it a great cloud of witnesses. All these people through whom God has come close to us, through whom God's light has been multiplied, through whom God's flame has been put into our hearts and lives as well. Most of the time, we don't have all these faces put up in our worship space. But I like the idea that once in a while, we need to be reminded of those faces. People whose lives maybe you didn't know directly, but who influenced and brought us to this place. And to know that we're part of this grand, beautiful communion of saints for those who will be brought to the waters as well. So that others will tell their faith story and say, you know who really brought God's love home to me was... Maybe your name will go there. You know who really lived out the reign of God for me? Well, maybe that's you. Maybe your child. Maybe your grandchild. Maybe somebody that you haven't even met yet but will have the chance to share your faith, will send a ripple mark in somebody else's life and put light in somebody else's path that we can't even imagine yet. This Sunday, we invite you to gather with us as we remember the lives we have known and the folks we have lost in the last year, but who are never lost in God's grip, who are always held in God's care, and whom we are promised we will be reunited with. Most of the time, we can't see their faces, but I want to ask you to imagine, to use your faithful imagination with me and this Sunday to picture all those lives of people you have known, and those who came before them, and those who came before them, and those who are yet to be, who are gathered in this grand community of people whose light has made our lives that much richer. There's an old line of Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where he talked once in giving a speech about asking people to think for a moment about the people who have loved you into being. And I want to suggest that's what this day, that's what this celebration of all the saints is about. Not about naming a handful of people we think make it to the VIP club of the inner circle of heaven. Not about setting up some ranking of who's a more important Christian or who's a better holy person than somebody else. But instead to think, who can I be grateful for? Who are the people who loved me into being? Or maybe to be more honest, who are the people through whom God's love was made real to me and brought me to where I am? Who are the people that God put a light in their lives so that it could be put into my life and shared with the next person and the next person and the next person after that? Join us this Sunday as we celebrate all the people God has used to bring that kind of light into our lives. The church folk, pastors to be sure, teachers, troublemakers, mystics, and holy fools. All the people God has used to place light into our lives. Join us on Sunday as we give thanks for the people who brought God's light into our lives and who continue to illuminate them still. See you Sunday.